We're going to call this public hearing to order Monday, October 6th. Mr. Douglas.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and for the public. This is a advertised public hearing on the City of Jasper's millage rate. This is the second of 3 required public hearings. The first hearing was this morning at the administrative public hearing in these chambers at 10 a.m. We went through this slideshow, and we will do that again this evening. There will be a third public hearing, which is going to be at the regular scheduled work session on October 23rd at 6 p.m. So at that meeting, we will be asking for consideration and adoption of the millage rate. So we are here this evening to discuss the millage rate. Clearly, you all have gotten the advertisement. We'll demonstrate that in a moment. But basically, the millage rate is the tax rate that is used to calculate local property taxes. So if you live in the city, this public hearing is for the city millage rate. The county and the school will have their own respective meetings, but this is only applying to the millage rate for city residents. According to Georgia law, all taxing agencies must advertise a tax increase and hold 3 public hearings to claim taxes on reassessed properties, even if the millage rate remains unchanged. So you may have seen this being advertised because we did adopt a tentative millage rate of 6.221 mills. So again, we are recommending at the staff level to hold steady the millage rate of 6.221 mills, which was the same millage rate as 2024, because the tax digest, which is the valuation of properties within the city, because there was an increase of 1.39%, we are required by state law to have 3 public hearings. So, some additional information. The City of Jasper has tentatively adopted a millage rate of 6.221 mills, which is the same millage rate as last year, 2024. However, because it is higher than the rollback rate of 6.136, it does constitute a 1.39% higher digest, so we are going through these public hearings. So again, this is another document you may have seen in the local paper. This is the 5-year history. I've blown out the 2025 section just to call special attention. The number that is circled in red is the total city taxes levied. So that's 2.932 million. That is about 32% of our total general fund revenue. So in order to operate general fund services, police, fire, etc., it's about $7.9 million to $8 million. So this is roughly a third derived through property taxes. The other 68% or so is through other revenue sources. So just to kind of walk through a few examples, just to kind of help illustrate what a millage rate is. And because there was some action taken last year by the voters of Pickens County, there was a referendum on the ballot, House Bill 581, which each voter in Georgia had an opportunity in their respective community to vote on whether or not they wanted to have a floating homestead exemption. It was affirmatively approved in Pickens County. Therefore, the city, county school system did not opt out of the floating homestead. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the importance is if you have a residential property inside the city limits and you homestead, meaning you go to the county assessor, file the necessary paperwork to homestead your property, meaning this is my home. This is where I live primarily. This is not a rental. It's not an Airbnb. This is where I'm stationed, basically. Then this is an example of an appraised value, and assessed value. So appraised value is what you may have got the notice of an assessment earlier this summer from the county, talking about what your appraised or market value. If you sold your home, this is what you would hope to get, or this is what maybe other homes in your area sold for. So in this one, I wanted to choose it because in 2024, you can see that the appraised value was $144,197. Now, you don't get taxed at 100% of your value. You only get taxed at 40% of your value. So what you do is you take that appraised value, and 40% of it is called the assessed. That's what you're assessed for taxes. So the 2024 millage rate of 6.221 mils at the assessed value yields $358.82. So of course, the advertised rate of 6.221 mils, if you take the same appraised value, which in this case for 2025 is the same, so there was no increase, then you take the 40%, obviously it's going to be the same, at the same millage rate of 6.221, that's 358, so it's the exact same. So that just is for a homestead property, no changes to appraised value, no change to the proposed millage, it's going to yield the same assessed tax value. So if there had been properties around you that had a higher appraised value, you may have gotten an appraisal, you may have went to the county and appealed because you said, hey, I don't know what this is. This is where another homestead property, this property had filed homestead paperwork, their value in 2024 was $239,542. You do the 40% of that at the 6.221 mils, it's $596.07. Now in 2025, the appraised value or market rate for that property went up $341. So again, you take the 40% of the appraised value, it's going to be a higher. Now, going back to the House Bill 581, as the Pickens County voters voted affirmatively, the city did not opt out. Therefore, the law says that your value for this year is not going to be the 2025 number. The value, because of your homestead, is based upon the 2024 valuation. So even though the market value increased, because it was homestead, and because the law now is a floating homestead, meaning you have an exemption up to what the current value is to keep it at the base level, which in this case is 2024, your 2025 millage rate of 6.221 mils at the assessed value of your base year 2024 is going to be the same number as last year. Now, non-homestead properties, there are residential properties that, for whatever reason, a property owner has not filed homestead paperwork with the county. Therefore, the 581 floating homestead exemption does not apply to these properties. Therefore, under this scenario, the appraised value in 2024 is 170. The 40% at the 6.221 mils is this number, 423. The appraised value in 2025, market forces, whatever, appraiser went out, this property is now 287,035. So 40% of that is 114. So you can see here the millage rate has not changed of 6.221. However, because the value of the appraised, 40% of appraised is higher,
So that's about.
the taxes will be higher on this property. Again, House Bill 581, the floating homestead exemption, is not applicable to residential properties that were not homestead. Homestead properties, going back to the previous example, your base year is using of 2024. It's the same because of the same millage rate. Here, a non-homestead property, even though the millage rate is still considered 6.221, it will result in a higher tax bill because the 581 state law is not applicable to this. So, based upon the recommendation of city management, we're proposing the same millage rate of last year of 6.221 mills. And that concludes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Douglas, you have 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Ja, look at mine. You should. This is already. Okay, Alex. But not to the people.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us this evening. In the back of the room, you probably saw a property tax question form. If you didn't get one, there are. Ms. Kimmer, there's still some of these back there?
There are. Is there anybody that would like one?
They're in the back. If you'd like one, please let us know. At this time, I'm going to open this up to the public. For public comments, we do have set guidelines that we follow. Yes, ma'am. Individual making a comment must be with us in person. You have to state your name and your address. Comments are limited to city matters. You are limited to 3 minutes per person. No personal attacks or unwarranted accusations. I have the right, or the presiding officer has the right to end the comments or comments due to violations. You can only exercise the right 1 time per meeting. You cannot allocate or transfer your time. No inappropriate language, signs, or images, and public comment period may be limited to a total of 30 minutes based on the agenda. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to come forward? Just say somewhere in the center of the room, or you can stand wherever you're at if you'd like. You just raise your hand and I call upon you. Yes, sir. You'll stand, state your name and your address, sir.
Tony Davis, 400 Georgiana Street. I just want to make sure I understand this. So for people who have rental properties within the city limits, who wouldn't be able to claim homestead exemption, they would definitely be affected if their property's been appraised and valued at a higher rate because they couldn't claim homestead exemption. Would that be right?
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, sir. Based upon the state law 581 is only applicable to homestead properties.
Right.
So if the appraiser, the county appraiser appraised the property at a higher rate than last year, even though the millage rate is the same, because the 40% is valued of the appraised, then the tax bill would be higher.
So it would definitely affect rental properties throughout the city limits, and then if the people who own the property are renting, and we know we have a serious issue with the cost of rental housing in our community, that increase that the property owner would see would basically be pushed off to the renters, raising rental property costs even more than they are now. So why would we not focus on the rollback to help with people who don't own homes, the people who are renting, the people who are having trouble finding housing in our community that's affordable? It seems like they would suffer more than the people who own homes and have the homestead exemption. This is going to be passed on to families who are trying to rent in our community, if I understand it right. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
section.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Come on and join us.
Okay, see, we go with special. And this, very flat.
Show on one. Show on twice. Any further? You'll stand and say your name and your address, please.
My name is Lucky Davis. I live in Forest Sky Drive. And is it okay if I approach the stand?
Stand right in over, let me just stop you.
Oh, I'm at the stand right there. In the middle.
Staff has a piece of technology.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Otherwise, I'd say yes. And I don't know where the one that's normally sitting there went, so my apologies.
All good. Before y'all start the timer, I'd just like to say thank you to the City Council for giving us the opportunity to speak. I know we might not always see eye to eye, but this is a fundamental American principle that I'm glad we can all agree on. But if you all are ready.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, hello, my name is Lucky Davis, and I'm speaking here on behalf of two reasons. First, I'm extremely concerned about the proposed millage rate in this agenda. The second is because my generation is more at stake than anyone else's. Now, as you all know, millage rates are proposed to stay the same as last year, but if it's passed, the actual taxes are going to increase for a majority of the people in Jasper. That's because although there is a floating homestead exemption, 63% of the people living in Jasper don't actually own their home. Or, excuse me, 63% of the housing units in Jasper are not resided in by the primary owner. Now, that's because property values around here are risen. But within their announcement of this proposal, the City Council brings up an interesting point. Multiple times they've talked about homestead exemptions, basically saying that if you get one, you're immune to this new tax rate. Instead of paying 6.221, as you'll see, you'll pay 6.136, but only for certain residents. After looking a little deeper, this adopted tax rate pushes an agenda to get more and more people to rent rather than to buy, even with that exemption. And this is because renters pay no property tax. These parks, schools, $1 million bathroom, and amphitheaters that no one asked for are all paid by homeowners of Jasper. Now, renters get to enjoy them, but they don't have to pay for them. And I'm not knocking on renters. These tax incentives discourage anyone from really owning anything around here. But it's important to recognize the pattern. More and more people are renting in Jasper, which forces owners to compensate for that lost revenue. That cycle repeats, and in the past 5 years, property taxes have increased hundreds of dollars. Now, at the beginning of the speech, I talked about how I'm concerned for our generation. The City of Jasper taxes have increased 143% in 2020, and there's no sign of it slowing down. Now, I'm scared for us because this is what we're bound to inherit. We've got another 1% splosh on the ballot next month, more projects, and a further increase in the property tax for homeowners in this town. Now, most of them are longtime citizens in Jasper, a lot of them elderly, and on a fixed income. Your goal is clear. Tax them until they can't afford to keep their property anymore, forcing them out of their own home that they've lived in for so many years. The ones that are not seized by the city itself are often sold to wealthy investors who have no interest in preserving the small town Jasper we all know and love. Now, all we're asking is that you maintain the rollback, which drops the rate slightly and keeps taxes the same generally as last year, because ultimately it's going to help so many people, the homeowners and the renters included. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well said, young man.
She got it. Dialogue.
Come on in and join us. Anyone else that would like to speak on this item?
And everyone else.
Is there anyone else out in the hallway? Ms. Kim?
I'm sorry,
Is there
no,
anyone
it's
else?
just JPD.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Right.
Hearing no other comments, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Douglas, we have a meeting scheduled to begin promptly at 6. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, please hang out with us and wait. Our meeting will start in just a few